Put your hand on your chest for a second, not because anything is wrong. Just notice what's actually there. A little warmth maybe, a breath that's slightly deeper than the one before it. Or nothing you can name yet, just a faint sense that something in you already responded to something your mind hasn't caught up to. That response happened before you read this sentence. Your body doesn't wait for your thoughts to finish forming. It reacts first and explains itself later, and today it has more than one thing to react to. You've probably had a version of this before, on ordinary days that had nothing to do with the sky. A room shifts and your shoulders drop before you consciously register that the tension has passed. Someone says something and your stomach reacts a full breath before your mind produces the sentence, "That upset me." The body isn't slow, it's fast. What's slow is language, the part of you that has to translate a raw internal signal into a thought you can actually hold on to and talk about. Most days, that translation lag is small enough not to notice. Today, it's a little wider than usual in 3 specific places, and that's worth understanding before we get into why. Here's what's strange about today specifically, and it's worth sitting with for a second before we go anywhere near the planets. Long before anyone had instruments to measure it, people noticed that internal shifts show up in the body before they show up in words. A tightening in the stomach arrives before you've figured out why you're uneasy. A loosening in the chest arrives before you've admitted, even to yourself, that you're relieved. Scientists now have a name for this: interoception, the brain's constant, mostly unconscious tracking of signals from inside the body. Heartbeat, breath, gut activity, muscle tension. One of the oldest ways researchers test it is almost embarrassingly simple. They ask someone to count their own heartbeats silently, without touching their pulse or a monitor, just by feeling them. Some people land remarkably close to the real number. Others are far off, even though the heart doing the beating works exactly the same way in both bodies. What differs isn't the signal. It's how much of it actually reaches conscious awareness, and how quickly. That difference between people is called interoceptive accuracy, and researchers have been measuring it since the heartbeat counting task was first developed decades ago. It isn't fixed either. People who practice paying attention to internal sensation through breathwork or slow movement, or simply the habit of checking in with the body, tend to get measurably better at catching the signal earlier. The brain region most consistently involved is the insula, a fold of cortex that sits roughly where the temporal and frontal lobes meet, and its whole job is to take raw bodily static, heart rate, gut motility, muscle tension, temperature, and turn it into something you can eventually name as a feeling. The gap between the raw signal and the named feeling is real, it's measurable, and it's exactly the gap this video is asking you to pay attention to today. Not by trying to name every sensation perfectly, but simply by noticing that a sensation arrived at all, before the story about it does. That gap between what the body has already registered and what the mind gets around to naming is exactly where today's sky is doing something worth paying attention to. Not in a vague, energy is shifting way, in a specific mappable way, because astrology's oldest branch did something neuroscience is only now catching up to. It assigned different planets to different physical zones of the body, centuries before anyone could scan a nervous system or track a heartbeat on a screen. Today, 3 of those zones are being addressed at once, and that's not something that happens on an ordinary day. This isn't a loose metaphor either. Medical astrology, the older, more clinical branch of the tradition, largely set aside once modern medicine took over the job it used to do, assigned a specific body part to each sign of the zodiac in order from head to feet. Aries governs the head and face, Taurus the throat; Gemini, the lungs, arms and hands; Cancer, the chest and stomach lining; Leo, the heart and upper back; Virgo, the intestines and digestive process, and so on, all the way down to Pisces at the feet. It's a full-body map, and for centuries, practitioners used it the same way a modern clinician might use a systems chart, not to diagnose illness from stars, but to track which part of a person's physical experience was likely to be activated by a given planetary weather pattern. Most days, that map is background information, mildly interesting at best. Today, 3 separate planets are lighting up 3 separate stations on that same old chart simultaneously, and that specificity is the actual checkable reason this day might read as more physically loud than usual. Right now, Mercury and Jupiter are drawing closer together in Leo, close enough that the pull between them is already active even before their exact meeting point. Mercury governs the nervous system and the way information physically moves through the body: thought, breath, reflex, the small twitch of attention towards something new. Jupiter governs expansion, whatever wants more room today than it had yesterday. Put the two of them together in Leo, the sign traditionally tied to the heart, and you get a very specific physical signature. Not butterflies, not anxiety, something closer to loosening. A breath that goes slightly deeper without you deciding to breathe that way. A kind of warmth in the chest that isn't quite emotional and isn't quite physical either, more like pressure easing off something that had been held too tightly for too long. At the same time, and in a completely different part of the body, Saturn is sitting in Aries, the sign classically tied to the head. And Mercury is reaching toward it too, this time from a steadier, more cooperative angle. Saturn is structure. Saturn is the part of any process that says, not yet, not like that, slow down and build this properly. Mercury meeting Saturn in a supportive way means thought is getting organized today, and organizing has a physical cost. It tends to land as a low, dull pressure right at the temples, or a jaw that's been clenched without you noticing, or a mind that feels unusually clear paired with a head that feels tired in a way sleep alone won't fix. And underneath both of those, quieter than either but still present, the moon is void, of course, in Virgo, meaning it has made its final significant connection to another planet before it changes signs, and it won't form another one until it crosses into Libra. Virgo governs the digestive system. A void moon sitting there tends to show up as a stomach that doesn't quite know what it wants. Not hunger exactly, not fullness either, just a low-grade unsettledness that has nothing to do with what you ate, and everything to do with a part of the body waiting for its next instruction. 3 planets. 3 completely different zones of the body. 3 separate signals landing on the same day, in a pattern that doesn't line up like this very often. That's the actual checkable reason today might have felt more physically loud than usual. Not a metaphor, not a feeling pulled out of thin air, but an alignment you could plot on a chart and a body map old enough that it predates most modern medical textbooks. Start with the chest, because right now it's probably the loudest of the 3. If today felt like something opened, a conversation went further than you expected it to, an idea suddenly had room to move that it didn't have yesterday, you said yes to something you'd have hesitated over last week. That sense of expansion has a physical echo, and it's not incidental. Leo doesn't do quiet growth. It does growth you can feel in your sternum. Some people will notice it as a literal warmth spreading across the chest. Others will just notice they're standing a little taller without consciously deciding to. Others won't notice anything specific at all, just a general sense of more room than usual, the kind of feeling you'd struggle to describe if someone asked you to point to it. None of that needs interpreting as a sign of anything dramatic. It's simply what an expansive planet moving through the heart's zodiac territory tends to feel like in a body that's paying attention. It also tends to show up in small behavioral tells before it shows up as a clear thought. You might catch yourself talking slightly louder than usual, taking up a bit more physical space, laughing before the joke even finishes landing. None of that is performance. It's the chest leading and the personality following, which is the opposite order most people assume feelings happen in. If you catch it, the useful thing to do isn't to analyze it. It's to let whatever open stay open a little longer before your head talks you out of it. Chest-level openness tends to close fast once the thinking mind gets involved, and today the thinking mind has its own agenda in a different part of the body entirely. Which brings us to the head, and this one's going to feel almost like the opposite of the chest, even though both are happening at once. If the last stretch of today brought a specific kind of mental tension, not scattered, unfocused static, but a tight, organized pressure, like your thoughts are being sorted into folders whether you asked for that or not. That's Saturn's signature, and it's landing in exactly the zone that rules the head. Some people will feel it as literal tension at the temples, others as a jaw that's tighter than it needs to be, held there without any memory of clenching it. Others as a headache that isn't severe, just persistent, the kind that shows up when a lot of organizing is happening below the surface of conscious thought. Here's the part worth sitting with. This isn't your body malfunctioning under pressure. It's your body doing the physical work of structure building. And structure building takes muscle, even when the structure being built is mental. A plan doesn't organize itself for free. Somewhere, something has to tighten to hold the new shape in place. And today, that somewhere is your head, your jaw, the base of your skull. If you notice that tension, the most useful response probably isn't to fight it or ignore it. It's to actually let the organizing finish. Half-built structures are more uncomfortable than either the mess before or the clarity after. There's a specific way to tell this apart from ordinary stress, if you're curious. Ordinary stress tends to feel diffuse, scattered thoughts, a general sense of too much, hard to locate in any one spot. What Saturn in the head's own territory tends to produce instead is narrow and specific, one clear pressure point, usually the temples or the jaw hinge, paired with thinking that actually feels sharper than usual, not foggier. If your head feels tired, but your thoughts feel unusually precise, that combination is the tell. It's not depletion, it's construction. And then there's the stomach, which is the subtlest of the three, and probably the easiest to miss entirely, or to blame on something else. If something has felt slightly unsettled today, not sick, not painful, just a low hum of not quite right in the gut, that's very likely the void moon in Virgo, and it's worth naming plainly because a void moon isn't a bad thing. It just means the part of you governed by the moon has already finished its last conversation with the rest of the sky and is waiting without complaint for the next one to start. Virgo governs digestion, sorting, processing, the body quite literally breaking things down into usable pieces. When the moon goes quiet there, that processing keeps running, but without a fresh instruction feeding into it, which can feel like standing in a room where the machinery is still humming, even though nobody's added anything new to work on. This isn't a symptom. It isn't a warning. It's closer to a waiting room feeling. Nothing wrong, just an in-between state that resolves itself the moment the moon crosses into the next sign and reconnects with the rest of the sky. Until then, the gut may just feel like it's holding a question it hasn't been given yet. You might notice it as restlessness that doesn't have an obvious object, reaching for something to do without quite knowing what, checking your phone with no real reason, standing up and sitting back down. Virgo's whole function is refining and organizing what's already there, and a void moon there just means that refining process has nothing fresh to sort through for the moment. It isn't broken, it's idling. The moment the moon crosses into Libra, that stomach-level unease tends to resolve almost immediately, not because anything dramatic happens, but because the waiting period simply ends and a new signal arrives to work with. It's also worth knowing that Jupiter and Saturn aren't only linked through Mercury today. The two of them are forming the first of 3 direct supportive angles to each other this year, a slow conversation between expansion and structure that will keep circling back before it fully completes at the end of the month. Practically, that means the chest opening and the head organizing happening in your body right now aren't actually working against each other, even though they can feel like opposite pulls in the moment. They're 2 halves of the same process. Something in you is trying to grow, and something in you is trying to make sure that growth has a shape sturdy enough to last. A body doing both at once on the same day tends to feel a little overloaded. It isn't. It's thorough. So here's what actually shifts, if you pay attention to any of this. And it's a small, real thing, not a dramatic one. Most people only make sense of their day in hindsight. They feel off, or open, or tense, and hours later, once something external explains it, they retroactively assign a reason. What today's stacking offers, if you're willing to notice it, is the rare chance to catch the signal before the explanation shows up. The chest loosens before you consciously register relief. The jaw tightens before you consciously register that you're organizing something important. The stomach unsettles before you consciously register that you're in a waiting period. Astrology mapped these zones long before anyone had a word like interoception. And today, oddly, all 3 of its oldest body maps are active on the same day, in a way you can actually feel if you slow down enough to check. There's a practical version of this too, if you want one. The next time something today throws you off, or opens up, or organizes itself faster than you expected, try noticing where it registered in your body before you reach for an explanation. Chest, head, or stomach. That single act of noticing, not analyzing, just noticing, is closer to what the body is actually asking for than any specific action would be. The signal doesn't need you to respond to it. It just needs you to hear it arrive. None of this requires you to do anything with it. You don't have to journal about your chest, stretch your jaw, or eat something to settle your stomach. Reading a bodily signal accurately is not the same as needing to act on it immediately, and treating every physical sensation like an urgent message to decode is its own kind of exhausting, one this video isn't interested in adding to. The point isn't to chase meaning into every twinge. It's simply this. Today, more than most days, your body got there first. Whether you noticed is the only real variable, and that variable is entirely yours. If any part of this matched something you actually felt today, the chest, the head, or the stomach, say which one in the comments. Not because it proves anything, but because it's genuinely interesting to see how consistently these show up across people who've never spoken to each other, never compared notes, and don't know what the sky is doing right now. It's one of the more convincing small pieces of evidence that this kind of body mapping isn't just a nice story laid on top of coincidence. If this kind of grounded, non-generic reading is useful to you, subscribing helps more of it reach you before the next stacking like this happens, and based on how these 3 planets are moving over the next few weeks, it won't be long. No pressure either way. The information in this video doesn't stop working the moment you close the app. One last thing, because it's easy to let a video like this turn into another thing your mind has to manage. You don't need to remember Mercury's position, or Saturn's sign, or which house the void moon is transiting. You don't need to journal any of this, track it, or explain it to anyone. You only need to remember one sentence. Your body was never asking for your permission to react. It already did its job today, quietly, in 3 different places at once, whether you were paying attention or not. It did the same thing yesterday, in its own way, and it'll keep doing it tomorrow, sky or no sky. All that's left to decide is whether you noticed, and unlike your heartbeat, that part is entirely up to you.